Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the fields. So I know I said it. I said I wouldn't be looking at the news anymore for my own health. But I did. And I'm hearing about war in the news. Something that I've heard quite a bit, actually, off and on during this whole thing. Is war coming? Is there going to be a war between the United States and China? I don't know, but I can tell you this. If there is going to be a war, the Chinese government is certainly working very hard to get people's attitudes, their anger up toward the West, especially toward the United States. I should say specifically toward the United States. By the way, I'm out here walking around. I'm going to make my way toward an abandoned house. I've been to it before in one of my videos, but I thought I'd do that. I tried to do it yesterday with my son, but, well, my son, he really loves electronics. So he just wanted to get the camera, and that made it very difficult to record anything. Yeah, ever since he was, even before he was a year old, he really loved electronics. He,
how you doing?
One of the first things I saw him do, we were watching TV and all of a sudden the channel changed, and I looked over and he had the remote. He was changing the channels, and I thought, okay, so he just got it and was pushing buttons, I figured. The next day, he gets another remote. This one was for the air conditioning unit. Here they have these air conditioning units in the room, and you use a remote control to alter it. If you're in another country besides the United States, you probably know what I'm talking about. But he started using that, and I saw he's pointing it at the air conditioner, and he knew if he pushes those buttons, it does things and makes noises. And ever since then, his interest in electronics has just grown. He loves cameras. Every time he sees my my big camera here, which isn't really that big, but he gets it, he puts it around his neck, and he starts trying to take photos like he sees his dad do. The other day, he was also showing me on an iPhone that he can turn the camera on the iPhone without actually logging in. He was very proud of that. He's only 2. I'm just surprised. When I was his age, I don't think I knew how to use electronics. Of course, there wasn't the same sort of electronics at the time. I think my dad had a Commodore 64. I talked about it in the comments with someone. I knew how to play Frogger. I didn't know exactly how to turn it on. I knew you put the big floppy disk into the machine, but I never could have figured out the commands or anything to turn the thing on. But yeah, my son, he loves electronics, and it makes it difficult to record video when he just wants to get the camera and record himself. So back to the topic. Is there going to be a war? And for that, I have no idea if there's actually going to be a war, but I can tell you this. China has been preparing for a war with the West for a long time. Ever since they opened up their economy and we handed them our industry, they have been preparing for a war with the West. At this point, they have the ability to make all of our stuff, and we don't have any ability to make. I mean, let's say they decided tomorrow they're going to make all the iPhones in America. So they move a factory. Guess what? We don't have anybody in America that knows how to make an iPhone. They're all in China. And it's the same for pretty much all of our stuff that's made in China. For many, many years, they have been making this stuff over here, making fabrics, clothes, whatever you can think of. We basically handed it to them, and they have the ability to just cut us off. Same thing with medicine. They can just cut us off. And you say, well, why would they do that? Don't they want all the money? They're communists. Even if China and its people have become very capitalist, the people in control are still communists. It's run by the Communist Party. And they do not see us as friends. In fact, when they look at you in the West, they see an enemy. And like I said, they've been preparing for war ever since. That doesn't mean there's going to be a war, but they certainly think that at some point there's going to be a war, and they have been preparing for it, like I said. They've reached the point now where at least in image, people think that they can rival the United States militarily. But I don't think that's true I mean, if you really looked at it, it's not. But maybe but you never know what someone's going to do in desperation. That's what I want to get at. What happens when someone becomes desperate? Oh, by the way, everybody, it was the water buffalo my son was afraid of. I've got it walking around in the fields. I guess fertilizing, eating stuff, I don't know. In either case, back to what I was saying. So what happens when someone becomes desperate? And that's what I'm afraid is happening here with the Communist Party. So maybe, you know, they're facing the same sort of economic collapse. Even if they're lying about their numbers and, you know, pretending like their economy is coming back up, it's not. And as long as the West isn't buying stuff, and now they're talking about moving their industry, but rightly so, back out of China and back home to domestic markets to be manufactured, which is wise again, they might be looking at the end. If that happens, then they'll no longer have this opportunity. They'll no longer have that advantage. And what might they do in that situation? If they're facing, let's say right now, they think, okay, right now we have the ability, we can take Taiwan back. Or not back, you know what I mean. They can take Taiwan, not back. Don't get confused if you're in Taiwan. I'm not saying that they ever had it in the first place, but let's say they say, or they think, right now we have this narrow window. While we still have all this stuff and we still have the money and the ability to be able to go and take Taiwan, maybe we should, because very soon we won't. And we'll never have that opportunity again, because they're going to snuff us out. They're going to end the Communist Party. But if we act now and we take these things, then we can just hold on to it forever. Possibly. They're backed against the wall. You never know what they're going to do. They might just do it. Because, well, the opportunity may never come again. Or they say, pretty soon everything's going to start to fall apart, and the people are going to turn on us, and it'll be the end of the Communist Party. So we have to act now while we still have the power to do something, because it'll never, you know, it'll be over if we don't. That's the sort of thing that they may be facing. I think those are some of the fears they had with the Soviet Union back just before it collapsed, that they could have, you know, reacted in that way. And we're not talking about North Korea, you know, with its military that's falling apart. We're not talking about some bands of terrorists, if you want to label it that way, in the mountains of Afghanistan or anything like that. We're talking about a nuclear power with the largest standing military in the world, with aircraft carriers and all kinds of stuff designed specifically to go against our military, as in the United States and the West. So if they're acting out of desperation, they're not going to hold back. They don't care, because they know it's all over anyway. So that's what we're facing. We can they don't care. Like I said, if you're thinking, well, why would they do that? It's too expensive, it's not likely that they would win against the military. Well, you're dealing with someone who's desperate. So I don't know if there'll be a war, or if they'll just, you know, quietly go into the night, as they say. But certainly who really knows? And who knows, maybe they'll just continue on, and things will just continue on as they have, and they'll just continue to grow in strength. I don't know the future, but I can tell you what I know from the ground. Like I said, they're preparing just in case, because I'm sure that's on their minds too, and they're getting the people ready to support that. And a lot of them seem ready to do so, even if other people are, you know, not crazy and they're thinking this is annoying. It's, you know, this ultra nationalist stuff is just annoying. But believe me, there are plenty of people that'll go right along with it, because they've been conditioned to do so. And you might not like that particular phrase, but, well, believe me, every time some kind of thing happened with those Senkaku Islands, and I know I'll get in trouble for saying that, then they'd put a bunch of stuff on the TV about, you know, the bad guys. Suddenly the Japanese soldiers are back, and they're, you know, pillaging people, and they're doing all these horrible things in Shanghai and whatnot. Well, then suddenly people hate Japan, and they just hate Japan even more than normal. Or Taiwan, you know, suddenly it's the nationalists are back, you know, and they're doing the bad stuff. Suddenly everybody hates them, and they're ready to get them. So again, is there going to be a war? I really don't know, but I can tell you they're preparing for it. So what are we up against? Maybe some of you are saying we don't want to have a war with China. Well, believe me, some of them want to have a war with you. It might not be something you get to choose. Their military tends to be very aggressive, and I would say irresponsible with some of the things they do, like sending carrier strike groups right next to Taiwan, which we are treaty bound, or it's in the law basically that we would have to go to war over that. I mean, if they decided to invade Taiwan tomorrow, believe me, a lot of my friends in the military back in the United States, they would be heading to East Asia, and there would be a war. And I just hope that, you know, I've heard a lot of people talk about the Star Wars Defense Initiative or whatever. If you don't know what that is, you can look it up. It's something that Ronald Reagan came up with in the 80s, or at least it was suggested to him by probably someone in the military, where they were going to put satellites with lasers on them up in orbit that would shoot down any nuclear missiles or ICBMs that came to the, be fired at the United States. And supposedly we never put any of that into place. Right now I'm kind of hoping that they did. I'm kind of hoping that they secretly did, because, yeah, like I said, China is a nuclear power, and they do have the ability to launch them at us. And I don't know that it would just be China. If we had a war with China, it might be China and Russia and North Korea all together. So let's hope not. Let's hope it doesn't come to that, but you never know. And like I said, they're preparing, and we're up against people that really don't care. You can blow up as many people as you want. They're already killing their own people. So, you know, the whole thing about organ harvesting, and I'm not going to get into that stuff, but needless to say, they don't care. So and they're like I said, they're preparing. So maybe we should be preparing too. By the way, I've made it to the abandoned house. I actually made it here yesterday too, twice. But it's kind of interesting to see. This has been abandoned for a while. You know, it reminds me of when I first came here. Things have changed so much. And I guess we in the West have kind of contributed to that by handing over all of our money and all of our industry to build them up. But when I first arrived here, and the first time I visited this village, it was, it was very primitive compared to today. It was essentially, in my mind, it was like going back a couple hundred years, except I still had a cell phone and there was television. That was literally what it was like. Grandma and Grandpa, to cook, they'd build a fire, that sort of thing. You know, things are just so different today. And I'm not saying that's bad, that we helped and contributed to building them up. For the people, it has been a great blessing, we'll put it that way, for lack of a better term. A great blessing. It certainly has elevated their lives, and that is good. The bad part is that at the same time we were elevating all the people with all the money that was coming in and they were making, we were also elevating the Chinese military and the Chinese Communist Party, which, if you're in the United States, from our perspective, that's bad. For everybody, that's, you know what I mean. We kind of contributed to their rise as well. And now they've reached a point where they can rival us. And they don't stand for freedom. Whatever you want to say about the problems with the United States, or the problems in the West, and people will tell you it's not really free. And well, the other day, I'll tell you, I put a post on Twitter, and I may have mentioned this in another video. I put a post on Twitter because they were forcing me to go get that test, if you remember, the COVID-19 test. And some of the government people didn't know about it. So I thought, okay, what is this? Where are they actually taking me? And I put a tweet out, and guess what? The police the local police had contacted me and demanded basically that I delete the tweet or I was going to be deported. So if anybody was following me on Twitter, my account may have disappeared at one point, and you're probably not following me anymore. That's why. It's back now. But yeah, I was forced to take that down because I guess it embarrassed the local authorities or something, made them look bad. It was a misunderstanding, of course. I mean, I just was worried that they were forcing me to go to some place, and the government branch that was supposed to be dealing with that sort of thing had no idea about it. It just worried me. But that didn't matter. In the United States, if there was a misunderstanding like that, it's not like the police would show up and tell me to delete my Twitter account. So that's the kind of thing that you're dealing with here. If you post something that they don't like, they will delete your account. They won't ask you to delete it. They will delete it themselves because they can. And they know everything that you're putting online. So, and that was a Western thing. That's Twitter, you know, that's not even in this country. It's blocked. And they still were able to find it, and they were able to find me. That was, what a crazy thing. But here, if you're on WeChat or Weibo and you're posting something, guess what? They know what it is. And they know where you are. And they know who you are. And they will find you. And they'll delete your account first. Your social credit will be wrecked. You won't be able to do anything. You might not even be able to get on a train. Even if you wanted to leave this country, you wouldn't be able to. Of course, as a Westerner, I'd probably just be kicked out of the country. And you know, I'm not criticizing them for that. That's how it is here. And well, it's just very different. So you have to ask yourself, do you want to live in a society like that? Do you want to live in a place where you have to conform to what they say, or else they will shut you down? And if you continue to defy them, you might just disappear. And you might just never be heard from again. And it won't be just you. Your family, your friends, anyone connected to you, they're going to be affected as well. Their credit score is going to drop. They have absolute control. You will conform. Yeah, I mean, sure, you can express yourself in other ways, but for the most part, only in approved ways. We'll put it that way. You must conform. I can't stand that myself. So it was a wake-up call when they came and told me to delete the stuff. That was a definite wake-up call. I don't like that. I don't like feeling like I'm in a trap where I can't even express myself. So there you go. That's what I have for you to consider. If you want to be part of that sort of a thing, then maybe you can welcome whatever it is that they're doing and all the influence they're building in the world. If you don't like that, if you're like me and you like freedom and you like other people to be able to express themselves and you like art and real entertainment, by the way, their TV is as dull as can be because, well, it's controlled by the Communist Party. It's not artists out there writing stuff. If you like real things, then maybe consider that you don't want to have that kind of influence in the world. And you don't want Chinese style lockdowns, and you just don't want that. Believe me. That's one of the reasons that I love Hong Kong so much. It's like going to China, but with all the Western freedoms. Of course, that has been kind of eroding as of late, and it's really sad to see. Yeah, it's just really sad to see that happening. But there you go, something for you to consider. I probably got, excuse me, more than enough for this video, so I'm gonna go ahead and end it here, and I guess I'll see you guys in the next one.